In this video, we are going to understand some grammar rules, especially with verbs, which is important for taking the TOEIC test. This will help you to complete the sentence portion of the test and help you understand while reading passages and also understand questions more accurately. Okay, so what is a verb? A verb is a word that describes an action, state, or occurrence. It is an essential part of a sentence because it tells what the subject is doing or what is happening. Verbs are a fundamental part of speech that come in various types, each serving a different purpose in a sentence. Here are the different types of verbs. You have action verbs, which describe actions, linking verbs, which describe or identifies an object, a subject, helping verbs, which extends the meaning, modal verbs, which express permission or possibility, transitive verbs, which require a direct object to complete meaning, intransitive verbs, which do not require a direct object to complete their meaning, regular verbs, which follow a consistent pattern of past tense and past participle, irregular verbs do not follow a constant or consistent pattern, and we will cover this, phrasal verbs, which is a verb and a preposition or adverb that modifies the verb meaning, stative verbs, which describe a state rather than an action, and then dynamic verbs, which describe actions or processes. Now keep in mind that this may seem a bit too much or overwhelming, but actually when we get consistent exposure to these verbs and start seeing them as they are used in everyday life or in sentences, you can see a common theme, what the verb is really describing or what it's doing, and how it describes what the subject is doing or what is happening in a sentence. And this can really help in all sections of the TOEIC test, such as the listening, reading, and speaking section specifically. So let's give some specific examples here. So an action verb, again, describes physical or mental actions performed by the subject. Let's start with action verbs here. They show what someone or something is doing. For example, run, jump, think, and eat are action verbs. Let's start with, she runs every morning. What do you think the action verb is in this sentence? Here, runs is the action verb because it describes the physical activity she does every morning. What about, he thinks deeply about the problem? What do you think about this? What do you think the action verb in this sentence is? In this sentence, thinks is the action verb because it describes the mental activity he is doing. The action verb in these sentences are runs and thinks. They are action verbs because they describe actions that the subjects are performing. Now linking verbs. Linking verbs connect the subject of a sentence to a subject. This can be a noun or an adjective that describes or identifies the subject. They do not show an action but rather link the subject to more information. As an example, this could include am, is, are, was, were, seem, become, and feel. In the sentence, the sky is blue, what do you think the verb is here? Here, is the linking verb because it connects the subject sky with the adjective blue that describes it. Now what about this one? She seems happy. What do you think? Seems is the linking verb because it connects the subject she with the adjective happy that describes her. The linking verbs in these sentences are is and seems. They are linking verbs because they connect the subjects sky and she to the words that describe them, blue and happy. Now we get to helping verbs, which is also known as auxiliary verbs, and these are verbs that assist the main verb in a sentence by extending its meaning. They help to form different tenses, moods, voices, or different aspects. There are really three primary helping verbs: to be, to have, and to do. Again, helping verbs are used alongside a main verb to help express its tense or mood or voice or aspect. They do not have meaning on their own but work together with a main verb to add clarity or detail. As an example, I do like ice cream. What do you think the verb is here? The verb is do, because it assists the main verb in conveying additional meaning or detail about the action, which is like, I do like ice cream. What about, the book was written by the author? The verb is was. As you can see, helping verbs are crucial for forming different tenses as well. Helping verbs help to form the passive voice, such as I do like ice cream, or the cake was baked by Mary, where was helps convey the subject, in many cases, As you can see, helping verbs are essential components of English grammar and provide important details about the main action. Okay, now we get into modal verbs. Now, modal verbs express necessity or possibility or permission or ability, basically. It can include can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, as an example. The verb is in this sentence. You must finish your homework. What do you think? Here, must is the modal verb because it shows necessity, meaning you have to do your homework. What about this one here? She can speak 3 languages. What do you think? The modal verb in this one is can. As you can see with these 2 examples, the modal verbs in these sentences are must and can. They are modal verbs because must shows necessity and can shows ability. Now we get into transitive verbs. Transitive verbs require a direct object to complete their meaning. The action they describe is done to something or someone. This includes buy, throw, take, write, as an example. Now I'll show you the sentences. The first one is, she bought a new dress. What do you think is the transitive verb here? Bought is the transitive verb in the sentence because it is the action that is done to the object, a new dress. What about this one? He wrote a letter. Which is the verb here? In this sentence, wrote is the transitive verb because the action is done to the object, a letter. As you can see, transitive verbs in these sentences are bought and wrote. The direct objects are a new dress or a letter in these sentences. Transitive verbs need direct objects to complete their meaning, showing what the action is done. Now what about intransitive verbs? Now intransitive verbs do not require a direct object to complete their meaning, and the action they describe does not happen to someone or something. As an example, this could include sleep, laugh, go, or arrive. Okay, what about this sentence? She laughed loudly. What do you think is the intransitive verb? Here, laughed is the intransitive verb because it does not need an object to make sense. What about this one here? They arrived late. What do you think about this sentence? The intransitive verb here is arrived because it does not need an object to complete the meaning. See, no object is here. As you can see, the intransitive verbs in these sentences are laughed and arrived. They do not need the direct object to complete their meaning, as the actions do not happen to something or someone. Okay, then now we get into regular verbs. Regular verbs follow a consistent pattern when forming their past tense and past participle, typically by adding e or d at the end. Examples include walk to walked, jump to jumped, or he play or I play to played, they played, in those type of situations. Now in these sentences, what about this example? They walked to the park. What do you think the regular verb is here? The regular verb is walked. Walked is the regular verb because it follows the pattern of adding e from the past tense. Okay, what about she played the piano? What do you think? In this sentence, played is the regular verb because it follows the pattern of adding e from past tense. The regular verbs in these sentences are walked and played. Their past tense forms are made by adding ed, the base verbs walk and play. Okay, what about irregular verbs? Irregular verbs do not follow a consistent pattern when forming their past tense and past participle. Examples include go, went, gone, eat, ate, eaten, write to wrote, then wrote to written. You can see how they change. Okay, so in this example sentence, he went to the store. What do you think the verb is here? Here, went is the irregular verb because it changes from go in a way that does not follow a regular pattern. He went to the store. What about this one? She wrote a book. What do you think is the irregular verb? In this sentence, wrote is the irregular verb because it changes from write, she wrote, is correct. Again, the irregular verbs in these sentences are went and wrote. They change forms from go and write in ways that do not follow the regular pattern. Okay, now we get into phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs consist of a verb and one or more particles, which can be a preposition or an adverb that modify the verb's meaning. Examples include look up, break down, call off, or run out. In this sentence, she looked up the word in the dictionary. What do you think is the phrasal verb? Here, Looked up is the phrasal verb because it combines the verb look with the particle up to mean search for information, basically. Okay, what about this one? The car broke down on the highway. What do you think? In this sentence, broke down is the phrasal verb because it combines the verb broke with the particle down to mean stop working. As you can see, phrasal verbs in these sentences are looked up and broke down. They combine verbs with particles to create meanings different from the individual words. Now what about stative verbs? Stative verbs describe a state or condition rather than an action and are often not used in the continuous form. As examples, know, believe, love, or own would be examples of stative verbs. What about a sentence here that we'll look at? She knows the answer. What do you think is the stative verb here? Here, knows is the stative verb because it describes a state of mind and not an action. Okay, let's look at another example. They own a house. What do you think is the verb here? The stative verb here. Own is the stative verb in this sentence. It is because it describes possession, not an action. As you can see, the stative verbs in these sentences are knows and own. They describe states of being or possession rather than actions. Okay, let's look at dynamic verbs now. As you can see, dynamic verbs describe actions, processes, or sensations that are often physical, and they can also be used in continuous form. So the examples could include run, eat, talk, or change. Okay, let's look at a sentence. He is running in the park. What do you think? What do you think the dynamic verb is? Here, running is the dynamic verb because it describes an action and is used in the continuous form to show that the action is happening right now. What about this sentence? She is eating dinner. What do you think here? In this sentence, eating is the dynamic verb because it describes an action and is used in continuous form to show that the action is happening right now. As you can see, the dynamic verbs in these sentences are running and eating. They describe actions that are used in the continuous form to really indicate ongoing activities. Again, as we understand the different types of verbs and how they function in these sentences, it helps us to understand how we would construct clear and grammatically correct statements. Okay, good job, you made it. Thank you for joining, and in the next video, we will focus on subjects. See you in the next video.